Welcome to the summit, dear 1000 PS friends, not only at the summit of Monderone, which I just rode up, but also at the summit of engineering excellence, the MV Agusta Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro, which I was able to ride as one of 3 journalists worldwide. Unbelievable honor for me, hopefully awesome content for you. Stay tuned. Before I present you with the riding impressions of the Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro, here's a brief overview of what MV has gone through since 1945 and how the history of this incredible company has unfolded. MV Agusta started in 1945, separating from the airplane brand Agusta to focus solely on motorcycles. Back then, the location wasn't here at Lago di Varese, but further south in Samarate, where vehicles were developed for a long time. Yes, in the 1940s, there was a sense of new beginnings after the war. People suddenly became interested in the beautiful things in life again, and for MV, success quickly followed. This success was particularly evident in the racing series, in both the smaller and larger categories. Let's take a closer look at that now. By the 1950s, things really started to take off, with names like John Surtees, Mike Halewood, and ultimately the great Giacomo Agostini. MV Agusta won countless world championships and titles. The company is very proud of its racing history. However, racing costs money. Sales were not excessively high, and so by the 1960s, the company began to experience some financial difficulties and had to be cross-financed by the revenue still coming from aircraft manufacturing. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse for a while. In 1977, motorcycle production was halted and it took 15 years for a revival. It wasn't until 1992 that the Castiglione family, the famous Castiglione brothers, who at that time also had Cagiva, Ducati and Husqvarna under their wing, took over the small MV Agusta brand name. In 1997, the F4 was announced. With this, production moved to Varese by the lake and a new era began. This is one of the last F4 models to hit the market, featuring some modern upgrades. But of course, it all started with the Serie Oro, and we'll take a look at that together now. The F4 Serie Oro. Serie Oro comes from Italian, of course, and means Golden Series. It was launched in 1999 and won countless awards for design and performance. This series showcased for the first time what was technically possible. Following models included the Brutale, the F3 and the Turismo Veloce. During this time, ownership changed hands several times. Harley-Davidson owned a stake for a while, then Mercedes-Benz got involved, and by the end of the 2010s, a Russian investor stepped in. This led to the release of models like the Brutale Serie Oro and finally the Superveloce 800. These were always stunningly beautiful vehicles, but the financial background remained uncertain. Ownership kept changing and no one was ever quite sure until in 2022, Pierre Mobility, the owner of KTM, announced that they were investing. With 25% ownership in 2024, it increased to 50%, and this led to the creation of this masterpiece. The Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro 2024 showcases what is technically possible. But other models like the Enduro Veloce, which first came out as the LXP Oriole, also proved that the way motorcycles are built here is incomparable to how others do it. The level of detail is astonishing, and I was fortunate enough to be given a tour of the facility. I saw the halls, the new production lines. Everything here is handmade. You don't hear any machines in the background, and every detail is meticulously attended to. Every motorcycle goes through the light test. If you wish, you can even pick up your MV Agusta yourself. And there are quite a few employees who have stayed at this location since the time of the Castiglione brothers, since the early 90s, continuing to work at MV and carrying on this legacy despite all the ups and downs in management and business. And when you see a motorcycle like the Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro standing in front of you, then you can only stand in awe. And with this new investor, Serie Mobility, now holding the majority, there is hope that the MV Agusta brand will finally be on such stable financial footing that we can enjoy it for a long time to come. For instance, MV sold just over 5,000 motorcycles last year. However, the capacity here allows for 12,000. There is a new production line where the 3-cylinder models are made separately, and the old 3-cylinder models are on one line, while all 4-cylinder models are made on the old line. This is all being put on more stable footing now. KTM, or rather Serie Mobility, is assisting with procurement, handling large volumes and logistics in many areas, but MV remains MV with its design center in San Marino. I hope that even with slightly higher production numbers, this exclusivity will be maintained and we will continue to enjoy the MV Agusta brand for a long time to come. So now let's really get into the details of the MV Agusta Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro, a bike like a work of art. I'm not going to recite the technical specifications because Christoph Habert has already covered that for us. He made a great video that also discusses challenging topics like the price, but also many wonderful aspects like the technical features. And today I want to let you know how it rides, how it feels to handle something like this. Because for me, as I said, it's anything but every day to get my hands on something like this. And I'd like to thank MV Agusta and everyone involved for making this possible. Only 500 units of the Superveloce 1000 Serie Oro will be available, and even those will be built only on order. A first wave of orders has already come in because previous owners of MV Agustas were contacted and told that something special is coming, and if they would like to order, the first batch of bikes was quickly taken. Everything that comes from now on has to be built to order, and when you look at the vehicle in front of you, you understand why. You have to look at the materials used here, the different types of carbon, different fiber thicknesses, sometimes pressed, sometimes natural, different fiber lengths depending on the purpose. The entire fairing you see here, beautifully painted in these Giacomo Agostini commemorative colors, is made entirely of carbon. In some places MV has decided to leave it visible, in other places it is simply painted over. But it really is only the finest of the fine. There is not a millimeter of gap that is not perfect. I think the color scheme of this paint is spot on. You can't help but rave about this vehicle when you talk about it. And the material carbon accompanies you from front to back. Only the wheels, as we heard earlier in the interview, are forged aluminum wheels, not carbon wheels. But now I am talking about covers for the front brake disc, the cooling system, and that is also carbon. Moving to the back, the 4-exit titanium exhaust from Akrapovic not only produces an incredible sound, but is also, in my opinion, beautifully designed and perfectly integrated. The entire rear is also made entirely of carbon. We have the central reflector, the rear light, which is really beautifully showcased here. Then the exposed wheel, single-sided swing arm, a typical MV design feature with the wheel design directly taken from the prototype shown at EICMA in 2022. These red elements that are integrated, everything gives such a high quality impression. Even the housing and the mounting point of the rear wheel, forged from a single piece, are remarkable. Even the tires are Diablo Super Corsa from Pirelli, but they have been specially accented with this red highlight for this vehicle. This is something you only find in the MV, only in this Serie Oro. I could talk for hours about the handcrafted leather strap that runs so characteristically over the tank, typical of the Superveloce, or about the Alcantara and leather combination on the seat. The quilted seams on the side, it's all like a single piece, so beautiful. I can hardly find words to describe it. What I can describe to you, however, are the riding impressions. And now I would like to move away from the materials and describe how such a motorcycle, which costs over 80,000 euros in Austria, actually rides. And I have to say, today we rode a route from the company location of MV Beck at Lago di Varese. A short stretch of highway, and normally I'm not one who likes to ride on the highway with a motorcycle. But here, I was really glad because at least you can get a feel for what this engine can do and what this aerodynamics can achieve. Of course, I can't talk about the downforce from the winglets, but I can describe how stable it feels at 130 km/h. And you can tell that's where the vehicle belongs. Also, for comfort reasons, these higher speeds are actually more pleasant in the saddle, because on the one hand, the wind protection starts to take effect, and on the other hand, an air cushion forms on the chest, so the weight doesn't rest so heavily on the wrists. So it's really nice to set the cruise control at 160 km/h and just sail along the highway. And then you come to a section with some lighter curves, and you can just completely immerse yourself in it because the vehicle is designed precisely for these high speeds. Alessandro, the tester who performed the top speed test with the vehicle in Nardo, told me an anecdote. He sent a photo of himself on the bike showing the speedometer at 305 km/h, and he simply took the photo with his phone because it was so stable, even at those speeds. The aerodynamics play a significant role, of course, but also the suspension. This Öhlins suspension, which is semi-active, adjusts according to the riding modes. It adapts from rain, where it is the softest, through sport, moderately firm, to race hard. There is also a custom mode where you can set everything individually. And I have to say, when you ride a supersport on the road, such a semi-active suspension is really worth its weight in gold. Yesterday, I was riding the Superveloce 800, which also offers a top-notch suspension, but the extra comfort that a semi-active unit provides simply can't be matched. When you're in the saddle and have a preset with a conventional suspension, you're stuck with it. With the semi-active variant, it's just 2 clicks at the end of the handlebar, and you have the comfort back while still performing at an incredibly high level. As for the seating position on the MV, I'll just get on now to show you. I'm 187 centimeters tall. You actually find a relatively comfortable position here. Even with my height, the knee angle is bearable, I would say. I think it's quite appropriate. One thing to get used to is this side part here, because it flares out quite a bit. So the knee grip is good, and I also find plenty of space under the upper contours of the tank. But here, especially with the jeans I was wearing, which are motorcycle jeans by the way, before the negative comments come in, it's not so easy to find grip. But as I said, I rode it very comfortably today. I didn't push it too hard because I'm too respectful for that, but ergonomically I think it can be handled comfortably by people of any size. And another topic we had, which is now quite advanced in the supersport segment, is lightweight construction. Here, MV Agusta states a weight of 209 kilograms without the tank. About 15 liters of tank volume are added, so we're just over 220 kilograms. This is not among the lightest, and it doesn't have that racetrack or racing ambition so much. You can see that compared to the Brutal, on which the vehicle is motor-wise based, not too much weight has been added. Even though over 40 parts have been added, the fairing and other elements have been revised. Therefore, it is certainly not a lightweight, but it exudes this solid country road riding experience for which the vehicle was developed, and it embodies this very convincingly. I have already mentioned that it shares the same engine here. It has been revised. The engine has slightly fewer vibrations. The sound is also very different thanks to the completely newly developed system from Akrapovic. But the engine, even though it can be well handled on country roads, is clearly something geared towards the racetrack, because the power, the 208 horsepower, really only kicks in very late. Up to 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, you can really feel it trying a bit. And on these narrow mountain roads that we rode today, it's a bit out of place. You have to carefully consider where you want to take this bike and where you can explore this incredible power. I don't know if any of you out there would dare to take this on a racetrack. If so, feel free to write it in the comments below, because I don't even want to imagine how big the tears would be if it were to lie on its side, or how big the bill would be to pay afterwards. So I would advise against it unless you really have it under control. Otherwise, in everyday use, the operation of the vehicle is very close to what you already know from MV Agusta. The control units are logically arranged. The display is a 5.5-inch TFT display with quite good readability. The edges are a bit large nowadays. Perhaps you are used to something different. The black bars on the left and right sides of the display might seem a bit outdated, but otherwise the usability is very good. The settings are logical, and we will take a look at them together now as we go into the menu. The display offers various options. For example, we have the lean angles, whether riding or standing still. In our case, it appears to be about 9 degrees on the side stand. Below, we have an indicator for the G-forces acting during deceleration and acceleration. Here, I can adjust the traction control in 6 modes, with 1 being the lightest intervention and 6 being the strongest intervention, similar to the rain mode. I can also adjust the ABS here, with race mode having the rear deactivated. Then I have the option to turn the front lift control or wheelie control on or off, I could also record my ride here. If I press the control button for a long time, I enter the settings. You see, I am already in custom mode. Here, I could adjust the compression and rebound of the front fork, making it harder or softer. I could do the same with the rear. All this is semi-active. I can also adjust the steering damper in individual steps. You can even hear what you are doing, that there is a slight intervention. Otherwise, classic adjustment options. In the settings, I can also display a lap timer. In the settings, I see all the possibilities available, and I can choose whether, for example, the fuel gauge should be displayed or not. In race mode, I could also view the settings. I could connect a headset to receive navigation instructions in my ear if I have one connected. Then here is the custom map. I can also adjust the throttle response between low, medium, and high. Additionally, I have the maximum power of the engine, or like in rain mode, the low power variant. Then I can adjust the engine brake in 2 levels, low and normal. Also the throttle response, how quickly it reacts, slow and fast. I could set whether the rev limiter operates hard or soft, and I could turn the quick shifter on or off, so really at the highest level. So now you know everything that can still be adjusted. The settings, the suspension, and also the modes. The complete suspension, as we just saw, the traction control, which is adjustable in 6 stages. Of course, we also have lean angle dependent ABS. The ABS operates in 2 different intervention levels. Then we have the front lift control, called FLC, which keeps the front wheel lift at a fixed level. We can deactivate the rear ABS in race mode, which is not a given for a street motorcycle. So the electronics package here is really very complete. The quick shifter works well, especially when you use it under load. At lower speeds, if you use it sloppily, you might end up in neutral. This bike just isn't designed for that. I hope I was able to give you a good overview of what an 80,000 euro motorcycle can do with a rider, and also with someone who would now consider himself an experienced motorcycle journalist. I didn't sleep well last night, to be honest. I was very nervous, but everything went well. I stayed upright. I will conclude with a big thank you to MV for allowing me to ride it. Thank you out there for listening. Write in the comments below who has already signed the purchase contract. Also, tell me what you think about such a limited series, probably also to push or justify the price to some extent. So there is not much left for me to do except say goodbye from Italy and ciao.